Hey everybody, welcome to Some Guys Talking. I'm Brian Holler. That's
I'm Aaron Washington. Oh, sorry.
Yes, indeed. Welcome. How's it going, Aaron? How you doing? You're excited to talk today.
Yes, I am. I'm doing fantastic, my friend. It's been a good, busy morning. How are you doing this morning?
Busy but good. You know, lots of follow up and meetings and all sorts of good things. You know, always cranking away on these here Zoom / Google Meet / Zoho Meet / all the things. But I'm always excited to talk to people, and I'm really excited that there's a lot of that going on right now. Because generally speaking, when you're talking to a lot more people, that means a lot more things are happening, and so that's a good thing. So I'm excited about that. How about you? How's things going on your end? I like that last post of yours. We don't have to get too into all that, but I really did like the fact that you're sort of continuing to branch out there and show more. I think that's something that we could maybe talk about a little bit with folks is, you know, how to sort of align their strengths with, you know, what they do. I think that's in your case, you know, very evident. I'm pretty sure that's why, you know, your partners and you work together so well. But, you know, ultimately maybe talk a little bit about that from a general perspective. I mean, if you want to go see what Aaron actually did, go to his profiles, his Instagram or LinkedIn, and you can see these cool, like, you know, posts that he's starting to do about the business he works with. But I sort of wanted to talk about how to, you know, encourage people to do that a little bit more for themselves in whatever way, fits their brand or business.
Well, I guess we could probably jump into trying new things, because that could be that could be an example of it. So I've been a photographer for 34 years. And now I am also a chief marketing officer. So basically, it's been wearing a new hat, but it's been absolutely amazing. And I haven't talked too much. So basically, the Rooted Intellect company, my partner Alan, and you know, I refer to him as my partner, but we've been friends for a long time, and we've been we've been working on this for many months, and it's just been amazing to have a partner who's actually a brilliant guy. The nickname I have for him is SIG, super inventor genius guy, because how his brain works. But it's been amazing because, you know, I've been a photographer for all this time, and I've been a solo entity. So to be a partner in a company has been absolutely amazing. But trying new things has been uncomfortable. But, you know, I know that I'm up for the challenge of anything. And when it's, you know, so you referred to the video, and that was just basically getting up and talking. I have no problem getting in and running my mouth, as you can see.
Something we share in common, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So, but that means that your mind is constantly thinking if you have things to say. So, yeah, it's been interesting. It's been awesome, and we're really excited about the Bloom Carousel, and everything is coming together with our Kickstarter is coming this February. And actually, it's awesome because, you know, it literally is for home growing. I know, like, the benefits that I have received from cannabis has been life-changing. And I know you can probably agree, and know many people that
sure.
It just there is another way. And that's the thing. This is promoting, you know, home growing, whether you want to grow your own weed, if you want to grow your own veggies, whatever you want to do. It's encouraging you to go out and, you know, grow. So it's been amazing. But it's one of those things where I just want to prove in whatever way, whether it's content through LinkedIn or Instagram, wherever. I just want to show people an example of another way, because that is I am a proponent. I'm an advocate of cannabis, because so many people that I have met, it is giving them a release from alcoholism. It's giving them a release from opioid abuse. It's giving them relief from pharmaceuticals and all kinds of things, and also anxiety and all kinds of other PTSD. So that's why this is something that means so much to me, because it is putting medication in the hands of growers. And we're trying to, with the Discord, make the whole process of home growing not a scary thing, and something that we want to encourage. So I appreciate the kind comments on my piece. I'm going to be doing more of that and just kind of spreading the message. So I thank you, my friend.
No
But we all
problem.
need to try things that are uncomfortable. That's
It.
the
And that's what this is for us, or at least it started with it. It's like, you know, we
Yep.
want to do this, so let's do it. Okay, kind of scary. Let's talk about what we want to do first before we go live. But then let's not also let ourselves get sort of you know, analysis paralysis either, right? Let's go ahead and flip the switch, you know, even when we know we're not ready, or even though, like, I've certainly produced content before that is a much higher quality than like what we're doing, but I also like this, you know, and so, and I think we can continue to grow. And I think the most important thing is to your point, and what we've finally kind of why we did it so quickly is to get these conversations out there. I think is the most important, or just to be talking or having some other voices that people can sort of attach to or lean on or hear, and hopefully we're, you know, something that people want to listen to, you know.
Well, to that point, I think that we should kind of give ourselves a little bit of I don't know, some props, because it's not easy to just get on and start talking and, you know,
Right.
you know what, be willing to bare your soul. And I think that's kind of the way that our meetings were, where, you know, we can talk about things, and you and I are two guys who have a growth mindset and can self-analyze and aren't afraid to self-analyze. So with that, you know, it to be able to get out there and talk about things and be vulnerable is, you know, not easy. And I know a lot of people aren't dying to do it.
Right. Well,
So
there's a lot of
there
pros
we
and
go.
cons, you know, like we're kind of coming off the fly. We're trying to speak from the heart, but boy, oh boy, I mean, it would be surprising, especially with how much we talk, that, I mean, there inevitably we will, you know, step on our tongues, you know, inevitably I'll say something that I'm like, oh shoot, you know, I probably shouldn't have said it like that or that way. Right. That's, I think, what most people are afraid of, because literally one
Right.
thing, you're donezo, right? So
Right.
that's how people think, even though if you really look at that, when people have had these sort of high profile hiccups or what have you, a ton of them have actually recovered,
Right.
you know, like, I mean, if it was bad enough, then fine. But, and that's another topic for another day to talk about, sort of, you know, when that's appropriate, when not, you know, that sort of a thing. But the truth of the matter is, you shouldn't be afraid of that.
Right.
I don't think that you should operate in fear, right?
No,
I think
no.
you could acknowledge, you know, like, oh, this is scary, or here's a hurdle we might run into, or here's a difficulty that we certainly could see. Of course, like SWOT analyses are a thing, you know, like you know, of course, we're going to examine the entire situation, and strategically, we are going to talk about it, because whenever you're growing, you're likely ruffling somebody else's feathers, or you're, you know, you're growing at a certain pace that's not commensurate with other ones, and that can be, you know, very interesting, and that can cause a lot of stress. But you have to you can't be afraid of that, because, you know, ultimately, as long as you're operating from a place, I feel like, where you can feel like you have integrity, you're transparent as much as you possibly can be, your team feels like you're good, or the people that you're working with feel like there's a good synergy there. Oh, I hate that word, sorry. But anyhow, there's a good connections, right? There's a good vibe, whatever, you know, with the people that you're working with, and you're doing things, you know, on the up and up, basically, right? You're doing things in a way that's professional, you know, transparent, or at least as much as you can be. I think that's, you know, important. You know, I think that's what people, you know, are wanting to work with, and in those environments. And I don't think that you should operate. I don't think you'd be afraid to attack that and try to build that, right. And don't be, you know, like, you can't really worry about what you can't control, really.
Right.
You know.
No. Yeah. And that's one of the things. Well, and that's one of the lessons that I try to give to my kids, and things that I remember for myself, because, you know, the old thinking of my brain used to be, you know, when I was a professional alcoholic, your brain works in a way that you think, well, like, why did this have to happen to me? You're always the victim and
Right.
whatever, and you're always fearful. And it's one of the things that had to fundamentally change in my mind, where I did start to think, like, okay, when things happen that are out of the ordinary, or that aren't super positive, you know, I don't have that thinking, why me anymore. It's like, no, why not me? Why would I expect that it would be smooth sailing? So, and not in a negative way, but I've switched my thinking to say, all right, so if I'm in this situation, you know, instead of being fearful of it, which goes back to that, calls back to that point, but instead of being fearful of the situation, or why I'm in this or uncomfortable, what is the lesson that I'm supposed to discern from it? Like, why am I here? Like, I'm
Yeah.
here for a reason. And maybe that's also kind of ties back to the first point of doing things that are, uncomfortable to you.
Yeah.
Because you know that you're there for a reason. So let's get it going, basically.
Right. Well, and let's not be, when we know pain is coming, we're not really excited. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so, so that's not really something to get, woo, this is going to be tough. But I think acknowledging that that's going to happen
This
makes
is
it easier.
gonna suck.
Right. But I think letting everybody know and having, that's why I think we're like, dark humor comes into play and, hey, we're in this shit together kind of mentality, those are, important. It's important to acknowledge with the people that you're working with that, like, yeah, this sucks. So like let's try to get through it as best as we can,
Mhm.
Now, hopefully a lot of that doesn't happen to you. No one, I don't wish for any of that to happen, but I think it's naive to suggest that it wouldn't.
Right. No.
Especially when if you're doing what you need to do to grow, it is inevitable.
Right.
The changes will happen so fast that, there'll just be things that don't go the way you wish they would go. It just is inevitable. So you have to have some sort of comfortability level with that. That's for sure.
And that's when you have to realize that, and this is another kind of important lesson that I stumbled on, and you eventually stumble on as you get older, is that life is seasons. I mean, that's literally what it is. You're going to have your smooth seasons, and whether it's, smooth sailing or it's a storm, something's, you're going to have a good stretch, then you're going to have, and as long as you are aware of that and say, all right, well, I can see it coming, then you can handle that, as opposed to like, well, I'm just supposed to have smooth sailing from here on out. Why is bad stuff happening to me? So,
right. And it's funny because you're right. You're so right about sort of changing that mindset to when something horrible happens to you. First thing maybe you should think is, what did I do to cause this? Right? What did I do to create this environment, or what did I buy into that would allow somebody to do that to me? Right? Or do
self-analyzing.
something, right? So
Mhm.
even if you were victimized, like there is something like, now again, there's a lot of situations where just people are asshole, bullies, mean, and so maybe the lesson, unfortunately, is just that, right? Some people are just evil, right? Some people are terrible, right? And so I'm not suggesting that there aren't very difficult realizations and things that have happened to people that were not in their control, that they did not deserve, which happens, unfortunately, a ton. And so I'm not suggesting that, like, hey, suck it up, deal. No,
Right.
maybe the lesson is like, yo, this was a really traumatic experience. I better get some help. And on top of that, I better figure out ways where I can stop that nightmare from happening in my head on repeat, because that's what happens to every one of us who've gone through any sort of, strong trauma, is that it just, and then you manifest it. It becomes you, right? You become part of that, like what happened to
Right.
you, as opposed to going, oh, this is something that happened to me. I have to
Mhm.
basically figure out a way to um, process it,
Yeah.
and so that I can move
Right.
forward for myself
Come to
in
terms
a
with it.
positive
Right.
manner,
Mhm.
and not let this event that happened to me, no matter how bad it is or how much you didn't deserve it, you can't let that run your life moving forward, right? You have to find some way to move forward positively through it.
Mhm. Well, with that, but then that, okay, so then that could bring you
And maybe
to a
not positively, maybe just realistically is the
right.
better do
Well,
so, where you're not hurting yourself every day.
right.
You
Well,
you can at
just to
least
be able
handle it.
to process it,
Right.
basically, is what you're trying to say. Right. Well, but then
Well,
that
because some
comes
things just won't be positive. You know what I mean? Like there will be no, there's plenty of items that are, there is no silver lining. There is no,
right.
positivity. So I
Right.
think that's why a lot of the cliches, all the, like, talk, there's always going to be an element, and rightfully so, of people that would just be like, yeah, but that's not true for this, or nah, yeah, but it's not true for that. And so for me, I always think about, well, it's sort of a default mindset.
Mhm.
Yes, we have to acknowledge there's good and bad, difficult, easy, right? Like these are all, we're everything and nothing at once, right?
Mhm.
So the world is all of us and nothing, right? Like we don't matter and we do, right? And so, I think you have to be comfortable with those sort of dichotomies, paradigms, and I think that's really tough for people because and we're pitched this in a lot of ways. So this isn't necessarily a commentary on any one entity out there, but we're pitched that it's easy, that it's
Mhm.
a pill, that there's a right and a wrong way.
Right.
That's not true. That's not true at
Well,
all.
and that goes to the question of, and I was gonna back to one of your other points, and it's well, what part did I play in it or whatever. And it's not like saying to place blame on yourself, but okay. So the example is I've been in therapy for 5.5 years. Okay. And to do therapy like I had therapy different times in my life. Okay. And if you're not willing to do the work, and early on, I wasn't willing to be self-critical, self-analyzing. So it was a waste of time. It was. I mean, it was
Right.
just, you're not willing to look at yourself and analyze why you're in the situation. You literally are wasting your time, their time, your money, and everything. But with my therapist, the most brilliant therapist that there is, that like a lot of it, I had to go through and look through. Like, so I'm where I am to this day because I have literally like gone through and written down everything, like whether it's childhood trauma, things that whatever. I've had to write it all down, go through it and process it and get an understanding of it. So I guess my question to you is, your feelings on just the ability to be able to self-analyze, because in order to get better and not make the same mistakes that you've made a million times, you have to really look at yourself like, why am I doing this? Why do I? And you have to look at yourself with a harsh light. So
Yeah.
what is your opinion on that? Because it's not easy to do, but it's necessary to get over making the same mistakes and get past things that may be holding you back from a better future or a better vision of yourself or others or whatever.
Well, I mean, I agree with you that it's necessary to do. Most of the, I don't know, a lot of people I look up to are really good at that. They're able to know who they are, where they can improve, what their strengths are, and they're usually quick to, um, let you know if they've made a screw up, or if something's happened where they didn't go the way that they would want to, or if it kind of messes with their, like, something that could mess with their integrity. They usually attack it pretty quickly and direct, right,
Mhm.
with the person who's involved or the company or whatever it might be. So I do agree wholeheartedly that you got to look in the mirror and be able to do so very critically, which of course is hard. Especially when so many people are taught that, like, talking to yourself is crazy, or that there's other things that are in control of your life that aren't you.
Mhm.
I don't think that's the case, and I would encourage people to um,
and
maybe
not to say,
adjust.
and
I
not
would
to say
I
beat
would
up on
encourage them to
yourself.
adjust to that. Go ahead, Aaron. Yeah.
No, but just not to say, and I'll let you continue, but not to say like to beat up, because I don't want it to sound like I'm saying to beat up on yourself and be overly critical.
No,
But
of course not.
so go ahead.
No, you should love yourself. That's the whole thing, right? So if you love yourself and you're your best friend, I think that there's just, like, folks don't appreciate that, like, again, whether you call it prayer or meditation, or there's literally like exercises that you're doing to sort of, breathe through and tap into sort of a better mindset for yourself around something. These are all things that are taught by, therapists and other experts in terms of how to, like, tap into some things that are going wrong, or how to change some sort of mindset that is plaguing you, right? In your growth as a human being, right? So
Yep.
there's a myriad of ways to, sort of incorporate, sort of try to tackle this, etc. So what I would say is try to tap into one of those if you find yourself struggling in this area, right? If you find it really hard to critique yourself, and even more so to what you're talking about, if you find yourself being really mean to yourself, right? If you find yourself being very, like, especially if it's outwardly, right? If you're the kind of, like, there's one thing, like, again, there's basically humor, right? Self-deprecating humor, which totally fine. It's great. Eases tension. It's funny, right? Like, I can make fun of myself. No big deal, right? I'm okay with it. So you should be okay with it, right? And that's okay. I think that's fine. That's a healthy. That keeps your ego in check, right? You can keep your ego in check, right?
So you're
that's
saying self-supporting. Go ahead.
correct. That's what I'm saying. It's like I think you should have a relationship with yourself. So if you don't even know that that's a thing, then you're in a, like, you have to even realize that that's a thing,
Yeah.
that, oh, when I hear the voice in my head, it's me. That's okay. I'm talking to me, right? And so,
Please
this is
say
coming
that
from me.
again. Say that again, because people need to hear that again.
Well,
Like
yes, when you hear that voice in your
having the
head, it
importance of relationship with yourself.
agreed. Like when you hear those voices, those things come into your head. Like, I mean, shit, crazy stuff can come in your head. So
Mhm.
maybe you're like, Jesus, Brian, what the hell? Stop. You know, like, you know, and but you control that to a degree, right? And just because something bad comes in your head doesn't mean A, you believe it, B, that it's gonna happen,
Yeah.
or C, it's probably some just sort of like fear you might have or nervousness about a situation, or oh my God, I would hate it if that happened. Oh, I'm so glad that doesn't happen to me. That's okay. It's okay to feel that way. It is.
Mhm.
You know, no, you don't go talk to somebody who's been victimized in that fashion and be like, oh, I'm glad I'm not you. You know, like, fuck, that's an asshole move, right? But like,
Mhm.
it's okay to think that, Jesus, I'm glad that's not me. But you don't want to vocalize that,
Mhm.
right? So, of course, you don't. You know, we have empathy for people who have hurt, right? And then, of course, we've all been through our own stuff. So there's people who are saying that about you. So recognize that, right? You know, damn, he's pretty cool, but boy, and it doesn't matter, is my point. The voice that goes on in here is all that really, you know,
Right.
matters. As long as you're basically open to developing a relationship with yourself in that way and sort of analyzing the things that you're thinking, seeing, feeling about yourself. And then, yes, outwardly to the people you can trust or a therapist, both, kind of
Mhm.
expressing some of that at a level, right?
Well, to that point, and I think when I heard this or kind of wrap my mind around this concept, a lot of stuff changed for me, and it speaks to kind of what you were saying, where you know, well, for me, it popped into my head because I remember hearing like basically speaking to the relationship that you have with yourself, but I remember early on hearing like you need to have a good relationship with yourself because you are the one person that you are around 24 hours a day. And if you don't have a good relationship with yourself or good internal conversations, that's not a good thing. I mean, I enjoy like when I wind down at night, like I need time to just be within my own head, whether it's listening to music or doing whatever, but
Yep.
just literally talking to me. And for me personally, my relationship is with God. So I'm talking to myself and God and just kind of analyzing my day and just, if there's anything that I, whatever, could have done better,
Sure.
whatever.
Of
But
course.
just in all the things that I'm thankful for. But I need that time to just be within my own head to just kind of
Yep.
take in my day and just kind of process.
And I think another thing to reiterate, because I liked how you sort of phrase that. I feel like people think that there's some sort of like, and I think people do. Some people do this, right? They get really into it and they go make a very safe space for themselves, and adjust the light, and maybe lay out a thing, light a candle, the whole nine, right? But then a lot of us are literally just sitting watching our favorite show
Mhm.
and unwinding because I'm finally not in front of a computer. My phone isn't going ballistic. I'm not talking to 74 people, right? I'm not worried about this process I need to like so much strategy going on. I need to declutter from that. So
Mhm.
when I declutter from that, I tend to just think about things. And when I watch some of my favorite things or listen to your point, to some of my favorite music or whatever, that'll steer me in a direction and maybe smoke some cannabis or consume some cannabis and stuff and sort of allow myself to relax and let my mind wander into some other fun places that are a little more, appealing, like the wind down mode, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes if I'm watching something I really like, whether it's, I don't know, I don't want to get too much into what I watch because then you'll psychoanalyze me. But the point is, not you, but people. But I don't care. My point is like whether it's like a sporting event or reaction videos or like I always just want to watch something that's like I'm a big fan of pro wrestling or
Mhm.
like sometimes a comedy or something like that, right? Sitcom that's funny or what have you, or somebody who I like out there that produces really cool content. I'll go down a rabbit hole with them sometimes.
Mhm.
Like those are the things I like to do when I'm just sitting around. So again, I'm not the guy who's putting up the like 17 candles and tapping into all this stuff, but I definitely do meditate. I definitely
Mhm.
do speak to myself. I definitely do take time to evaluate that relationship. I definitely tap into what I consider to be sort of, the one source. I'd refer to that as the universe, right? I
Mhm.
don't care if you call that God or whatever. It's all good. My point is like, whatever that is for you, yeah,
Mhm.
utilize that to your strengths and your advantage and align that with when you're, speaking to yourself and realize that that's why you're able to speak to yourself,
Right.
right? Is whether you believe it's been divine given to you by God or you were granted it as part of being for the universe, I think it still covers that base for everybody, no matter what your belief structure is, to be
Mhm.
fair. And I think in every major religion, philosophical belief structure, there is some sort of acknowledgement of like, yep, you must spend time,
Mhm.
basically aligning with God or with yourself or with the greater good, right? Or with the greater kind of powers that be, because we are it. And so if you know that, then there's a lot of sort of, I don't know, there's a lot of things you can tap into for yourself. And so, and you can, and you should allow that to hopefully kind of give yourself a good relationship. Like, again, I don't want to say positive or negative. I just want to say,
Right.
A healthy relationship.
Mindful. I appreciate that and it's funny because, for me, just that connecting, I follow tenets of many faiths, whether it's Judaism and Christianity, you name it. And one of them is Rastafari.
Yeah.
But that, again, that's the belief of you have a connection with God. And again, that's not always easy, because literally with that connection with God, it's, instead of like an angel and the devil on your shoulder, it's two angels. And at times it's like, I got to do what I have to do, not what I want to do. But just having that understanding and connection. And actually, I think another thing that kind of helps is it puts things in perspective for you. So you don't feel so like, this is one thing, like, people don't have to necessarily believe in God, whatever you do, whatever. The only thing is that if you don't have a higher power, and I remember, like, in early in sobriety, it's like your higher power could be like whatever, it could be anything, as long as there is something that you have in your mind, whether it's the universe or whatever, that's larger than you, gives you perspective. So when you get super scared or whatever, like, I don't get fearful very often, because there are things there's a greater good. I know there's a reason why I'm here, and it calms down a lot of stuff in life and a lot of like the chatter and the noise, because I know that there's a purpose for what I'm doing. I mean, me personally, and this is kind of like the point, I could have gone, like, my alcoholism could have gone one way and I could not be here right now. So I know, like, when things get stressful or whatever, I know that I'm here for a reason. So when things get stressful, I'm like, I'm good, because I know that things are ultimately going to work out. I wasn't saved for nothing. So
Sure.
I think that kind of helps with keep your perspective, where you don't feel like literally the whole universe is up to you and you've got to solve all the problems of the world. If you have a little bit of faith in whatever it is, then you're like, okay, it's going to be all right. I have that faith. And if it's not all on me to solve the problems of the world. It
Well, I
makes it a
also
little bit
think
easier.
that, like you, and I'm not going to get into all of the things that I know about you or vice versa, but for those of us and others who've been through, what I would consider, some real trauma in their lives, real difficult things. I won't get into specificities, of course, but I think we all know the difference between sort of normal problems or, usual day-to-day stuff, even like relationship, personal or business or whatever, friends, issues, right? And then like real shit, like real bad stuff that people shouldn't have had happen to them, kind of things, or really got into a self-destructive pattern, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think, crazily enough, like most of the people I know who feel like they're sort of put together in that way that you're describing have gone through some really terrible things more often than not. There's plenty of people who haven't and haven't really dialed in. Because if you were taught by your parents, for instance, to be that way, which we're starting to see more and more of that as we continue to move forward, I think that's a really great thing. If you've been taught sort of self-care and, and how to like be in tune with yourself, and you've aligned that to whatever your spiritual kind of guidance beliefs are, that's fantastic, and so like I would love it if parents were that way. So it seems like that's more of that going on, certainly with younger generation. But my point is, like, if you've gone through trauma virtually of any kind that's really significant to you, all that other stuff starts getting a little bit put into perspective for you, right? Like the stuff that maybe triggered you about somebody, I don't know, yelling at you, or somebody who's just having a bad day, right? It brushes off a little easier. It's easier to take, and it's also easier to address and stand up for, right? Because you know what it's like to be in the most difficult of those situations where you either couldn't talk or where you didn't have the ability to do that. And if you do have that ability, you recognize that because you've been through some things where you did not have the option to do those things, and how scary that is, that this isn't as scary.
Right.
Because you have some ability to control this, or you have some ability to address this, or stand up for yourself, or whatever it might be.
All right. Well, then, all right. So let's expand on that, because that's, being able to actually deal with, like, okay, a lot of us, who grew up in the 70s and the 80s, kind of like, you know, we all have, you know, family stuff. I mean, everyone's got family stuff, but it's
Sure.
kind of like you grow up and it's like, ah, that was then, no biggie. You know, this is one thing that I've taught my kids is that, you know, again, that rock in the shoe, you know, if you got a rock in the shoe, you got to stop and take it out, because if you keep running, it's gonna wear at you.
Right.
And that's the thing, like, you know, I know for me and just things that I've been able to process, you know, that for a lot of it, it's like, ah, that was in the past. And for all of us, like, we need to be able to realize, like, whatever is bothering us, whether it's whatever past trauma or current trauma,
Sure.
whatever is bothering you, you cannot just ignore it, because
I
it
guess
will work
that's really
its surface.
that's the big CTA right there, Aaron. I think you know, you can take everything else that we've said and be like, whatever. That's something I think that you can't really argue with.
Mm.
You know, you're right.
Because it's, and I'll let you continue. One thing one thought I just want to get is just with because I've talked to, you know, many people, and it's like whatever there's a symptom for everything. So whatever you can never just keep pushing things down and not deal with them, because they are going to manifest themselves in some way,
And it
whether it's
always becomes like
shopping,
10 times
abuse,
worse.
whatever.
It's just
Yeah,
always worse when you hold it in. All of a sudden, then that one thing that's going to trigger you, which was just this little instance right here, now you're bringing all this baggage with you when it finally explodes right into this situation.
right.
Right. You know, like, holy shit. Because so that's another thing for if you're on the other side of that, like ever had somebody just totally go off on you, or a
Right.
situation like way extra, you know, and to the point where everybody's like texting each other during the
Whoa,
meeting.
where'd that come
Oh,
from?
fucking so and so, right? You know, when that sort of a thing happens, I can assure you it has zero to do with whatever that particular instance that triggered the flame up or the flare up happened. It has nothing to do probably with that instance. Or like
And
what triggered it.
that's why I try to remember and think about, and I've tried to do it more and more, think about other people's perspectives. Because again, when you're dealing with someone in life, you're dealing with them for that little interaction.
Right.
It has not, like, you have no idea what they've gone through that day, that week, that month, their year,
That's
and
right.
where their head's at. That's why a lot of the times it's trying to be, and I try to remember that with the craziness of the world, that you need to remember that everyone is going through something. Well, and that also speaks to the other point of just the overall mental health, and just that, you know, that there is a crisis and there is like some stuff going on. So I also try to remind myself of that, I mean, honestly, there are people who are functioning in the world that aren't all there, and you need to remember that. And if you say the smallest thing, they might lose their minds. And yeah, so
I mean, like, I think it is like there are people, like we were saying this earlier, there are people who are too far gone. There are people who are so wrapped up in their own beliefs that they are married to the idea that you might be less than them, or that you're not worthy, you're not an equal human being in their eyes, right?
so
You
I
know,
don't
so
want
what
to
do you
go
do there, right? Well,
down a
I
negative
mean,
place. But what do we do with the people that are broken? Like,
right.
because there's a lot, because literally there are a lot of like walking around they're like bombs, like
So
ready to
again,
go
though,
off.
if you're watching this and you hear us say this right away, everybody I'm thinking is going like, "Oh, fuck these two." You know, who the fuck are they? You know, why the hell do they fucking matter, right? That's basically, and okay, you know, that's why people aren't doing this.
Right,
That's why
that's
people
true.
don't put something like this out. I understand. You know, we're just willing to do it because we're willing to kind of, you can call our bluff.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
And
You
I
know,
figure if it helps if one person, and well, my thinking has always been this, is that, you know, it's whatever you like, great, take it, and whatever, just leave at the curb with the garbage. If you don't like it, if it's not your opinion or whatever. But but I figure as long as it's coming from a place where you're genuinely trying to help people and
yes,
understand, um, because it is kind of sad that there's just like, you know, I was talking to my youngest the other day about it. And it's like, you know, I can't imagine what life is like for all the kids of this generation to just watch like adults self-destructing and being like acting like children, and like
I mean,
it's
it,
just
let's
It's
not. I mean, it does seem like the younger generation's a little more adult. They've been forced to be more mature because of
yeah,
how
yeah.
ridiculous like their generation above them and above that is. And that's us too. So again, I'm not suggesting
No,
that
yeah.
we're part of that. We are. And so but I mean, on top, I mean, there's plenty of blame to go around. Like, Gen X, first generation to have less money than and less power than the generation before it. First in American history.
Is
Guess
that
what
up?
though?
I think we're Generation X, right? I never
Yeah, we
could get.
are. And guess what though? Millennials even less than us. Gen Z even less. So again, it's about the systems. It's
Mm.
about the inadequate structures. Rome is crumbling. Everybody, do we want to fix it or we just want to watch it crumble? That's where we're at. And so, that's up to each and every one of us to be fair.
See, and that's the hard part because it's like we have these conversations, right? And we don't necessarily want to be political, but
But
here's the
it's
thing.
inevitable.
Here's the thing. There is the 800-pound pink gorilla or elephant in the room, or sorry, not pink, sorry, orange elephant
Yeah.
in the room that we can't talk about, and that we don't, there's so much that you open up, but it's difficult because I was watching the news, whatever. Like, thankfully, I need to get away. I watch a lot of politics. I think from I just had to unplug for a long time in like a couple years ago because it was just
Sure.
too much craziness. But among the feeds of drumming tutorials, you made me laugh with the pro wrestling because somehow wrestling, like 80s wrestling, is in my feeds now. And I
Good.
was a kid who loved like 70s and 80s wrestling, like Bruno Sammartino and Dusty
That's right.
Rhodes,
Let's
and
go.
like that
Now
was
we're
like
talking.
into like the
I
Hulk
can do a
and
whole
all that.
show on that all day long. Okay, now
Yeah,
we've got our pro wrestling show and we've got our old school hip hop show. All right,
yeah.
next.
But also I see like the political stuff, and it's just like this is the thing. Like right now, it is extremely frustrating because we are looking at things that are not normal, like they're normal, and it's just like every day I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
I do have something to say about that. Most of the people in the country agree with you. So what we are shown, and I think everybody knows this, but like again, if you're watching any cable news or mainstream sources, like it's all like 3, 4 companies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So no one's getting unfiltered, unbiased
Right.
journal like
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't exist any longer and hasn't
Mm-hmm.
for quite some time. I mean, yeah, yes, there's
Well, it
places
does
that are doing it, and
online
there's people
independently,
who would
but
be very offended that I said
mm-hmm.
that. And all I'd say is, do you work for NBC?
Mm-hmm.
So shut up.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you're not allowed to talk about, let's say, what's going on in Israel in the most honest way. So shut up. You're not allowed to. You can try. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't work for them, yes, you can put out things. And we now see some of that, right? Again, this is not to bash media or whatever, or to
Right.
talk about, I'm just saying, um, be careful where you're getting your news from and your sources. And that's really difficult today, especially since we're so inundated with so many of them all the
Right.
time. We also know now that we can't really trust the things that we were taught as youngsters to trust, and that's not rocket science to anybody. That shouldn't be news to anyone, right? That there's been enough information put out there in the last,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
to really change how people are seeing how we've built the country and our systems and our processes, right? Clearly, there's a lot of like issues there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really understand why you would look at all that information, right? Unless you're really just tunnel vision, which is a problem, right? Echo chambers, etc. But ultimately, that's what, like, if you can get out of those, you have a better fighting chance. I don't give a crap if you identify as conservative or liberal or Dem or Republican or independent or, whatever, whoever you are, you should be able to be who you are, and you should identify whatever way you feel like you need to identify. And I think that's important for us to respect in each other. That said, I do also think that it's important for us to, I recognize that it's these dividing things that really hurt us more than,
Mm-hmm.
I don't get why people are on the side of the people that are bullying them, that are punishing them, except for it has to be sort of propaganda. But then again, I have to be acknowledgeable that my perspective is only one,
Mhm.
and that like what I think might be, you know, a conspiracy or whatever might just be I don't like it.
Mhm.
Right, or I don't see why that happens, right? And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about you
Mhm.
have to look in the mirror. I think most of the people in the country are willing to look in the mirror. I think our leaders often are not.
Well, the interesting part, well, and that's the echo chamber. That's an interesting, yeah, that's very poignant. Um, yeah. Well, one of the here, but what is frustrating most to me is that it's not so much because yes, there are the biases in the media where it's like you have people who talk about the former guy and they talk about the current president and they compare the two like you're comparing like apples and nuclear bombs. I mean, but somehow the Overton window has shifted where these two are on the same plane and it's like, are you kidding me? So I guess what I find more frustrating is that now facts don't matter because literally it's simple. There's a question of right and wrong. And the fact that we're trying to roll back time, whether it's rights for women, now contraception, they're going to look at all kinds like the fact like there that what I find frustrating is that and why I feel like I'm taking crazy pills is because you literally again there's right and wrong like and there's some things that are on the wrong side of history and there's nothing that's going to change that and it's frustrating where yeah literally we're going backwards like we're going backwards. That's insane to me. And particularly for someone who looks like me, it's doubly insane because it's like, you're not going to have rights anymore. So that's the thing. It gets frustrating because there are facts and facts don't seem to matter anymore.
They do. It's just that people are using the wrong ones. And what I mean by that is, you know, like you got to appeal to people's what they want and what they need, right? Like again, a large part of the reason we're in the situations we're in is because people have all sort of thrown their hands up a bit, right?
Mhm.
It's ridiculous to have a two-party system. It's stupid. It is. It just is.
Especially
Um,
if one doesn't want to actually do their job, then
Neither
it
have been doing
becomes
their job my whole
yeah,
life, so
then it becomes harder.
that's a whole nother story
All right,
altogether.
that's
Like
fine.
I just look at it I look at that from a business perspective. Just all these inefficiencies, they're there for a reason. These are all smart, rich people that are put in these positions. So the fact that like a law has to be this many pages and isn't digital, or that we don't have like any modernized practices for this because of tradition, fucking whatever. Like
Mhm.
that's such lies. It's all just to fucking deceive, put pork where it needs to be, to write fancy words that average people might not understand, that mean basically, yep, we get all the power and you get nothing. I mean, again,
When you're
like
done.
this is what people do, right?
Mhm.
And they do this. It's not just the government that does this. This is how, like, big businesses bully their way to being bigger, right? Is they basically confuse and divide and basically navigate these sort of legal waters, right? That they know more about, right? So if you really want to do something in life, learn how money actually moves. Learn how contracts are done. Look how investment groups are formed. Look how funds are formed. Look at who owns everything and how they got it and how
Okay,
they
so
grew.
and that speaks to the question. So, and this is one thing, and this is what I have a hard time kind of understanding because you have okay, the reason why we're in the current situation that we're in is because we have a segment of our population who feels as though this one figure is the embodiment of their grievance. And instead of being upset with the government, both sides who don't do anything for them, they are,
They're mad at their fellow
oh,
citizens.
they're, huh?
they're mad at their fellow citizens.
Yeah, yes,
been
they're but that's the thing. They don't see that literally the people who are their legislators have them completely what is the word, distracted with the latest culture war.
okay. So
Instead of them not making a good wage, the way that they can literally, all of their elected officials can keep them asleep is basically talk about Taylor Swift and the green M&M and like Bud Light and just
and it
like,
works. You want to know why it works? Generations and generations and generations of absolutely destroying things like public school education, math and science especially, right? So again, it's not even their fault to a certain degree, you know. If you were come up in a certain era, again, on top of this, they were taught that they're the chosen ones, you know, without ever saying that to them, right? But ultimately everything around them screams, and I even recognize this as a young kid, like, oh, if you're white and a dude, shit's easier, you know. And so that's the entire system, is if you're white and a dude, it's easier. And that is the case. And so I'm like, well, that's not fair. I'm also a Libra, and so that bothers the shit out of me, right? You know, but what do you do, right? And I feel like as long as you can acknowledge like that's not a great thing for you, you're sort of on a right track, right? Like you'll figure it out, right? You'll go there. But to get to that place, right, for some of those people that you're talking about would be it will never happen. Not ever.
Yeah, no.
And so and so you know, to the larger question, what do you do, right? I feel like I don't know. My opinion, you bully the bullies.
That's
the only way. That's the only way it gets it. And by that, I don't mean we're gonna, you know, take up arms and all this.
No, but no, when you call it out, you punch the bully in the mouth.
That's it. That's right. And you build, hold on, and even bigger, you build systems to combat the real bullies. Right. The real bullies are not your bro, not bro, but this person with the, you know, with the MAGA cap on or whatever, that's wearing all the bullshit and acting like an idiot when they get interviewed. That is not your enemy. It's the person who fosters that. It's the person, it's the team or the entity or the people that make that person that way. That's the problem, not the person, right? Sure, if that person comes up to you, start talking mad crap, punch them in the fucking face, seriously. But like ultimately, they're not the issue. It's the environment that they plugged into that is the issue, right? So if you really want to do something about it, you know, attack the system, create a way for you to address this in whatever small way that you can, right? And maybe that's just standing up for what's right or talking to people or what have you. Or if you run a business, run your business accordingly. You know what I'm saying? Don't run it based on these principles, because you can see that that's, even if you are, if you feel that way, pretty sure you can see that that's not conducive to doing business now.
Right.
It might have been 20 years ago, maybe even 15, but it sure as hell isn't now. So you better, like, again, that tells me about whether, like, the worst people are the people who know this and still are, you know, feel that way. Those are the worst people. The worst people who are like, know that this is happening, understand that this is a bad thing, and still lean into it because they can make money and manipulate people. That's the worst.
Well, I think the fact that you realize that is a statement, because I think that is rare. I think for a lot of people, you know, that, and it's funny because it just reminds me, you said like you realized it when you were young. It reminds me, I was watching something with James Baldwin the other day, and he was, you know, a lecture that he was given in 56, I think, or 65 at Cambridge University, but he was talking about race relations. He was debating William Buckley, and he had made a point about, you know, every black child at about 5 or 6 gets the realization that that country that you've been, you know, praising allegiance to doesn't necessarily have allegiance to you.
Right.
And the interesting part was he was arguing just about the fact that, you know, a lot of the people in the room wouldn't ever want to be him because they think that the worst thing in the world is to be black. And he said, I would argue that the worst thing would be a poor white Southerner, is because you've been told that you've made it.
Yep.
And literally that privilege is going to set you up for failure.
That's right.
So, and I think
And
the
I think
reason
you see the result of that, you know, you see like that's the thing that you're seeing, that's the, whatever you want to say, 20-25% of people that are there. I mean, again, these are numbers that are very debatable, but bottom line is, yes, this segment of people that, I think we can all see are like, oh no, they're like, nope, you're not going to be able to sort of compromise with those folks. They're too far down the rabbit hole. I mean, they literally think that you're subhuman, Aaron.
Yeah.
They don't think that you're equal to them, like for real. Like they look at you like you're less than.
Trust me, I know. I know.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, again, it's up to people that look like me to call that shit out. It is. It's to like the reason this doesn't happen is because
their own family.
The people that look like this don't punch bullies in the face as much as they should. Let's be honest. That's what it is.
Well, and there must be a whole nother kind of cognitive dissonance, pain, mental gymnastics that one has to go through if they are Caucasian and they're members of their family who spout this nonsense.
Well, but just now you're talking about stuff that drives me up a wall. Again, stop being like such a hypocrite. Like, what are you talking about? Like, if you have one like gay person that you love, shut up. Stop fucking being counterproductive to what you would want for that person. You know what I'm saying? And if you're the gay person, what the fuck are you doing with friends like that?
Why are you hanging out? Yeah.
Why are you hanging out with people like that? There's a lot of people who would love you unconditionally, that bring you on as a friend, that like support, that'll be a safe space for you to be. You don't need to have that. I'd rather be alone. I'd rather have no friends.
There's a whole nother conversation about the Tim Scott kind of guys. Like, why do you want to be around people who hate you? But anyway.
Well, that's a whole nother. I'm glad only you are allowed to talk about.
Yeah, I will talk about that shucking and jiving because that's.
I have to not be. I'm not allowed to say what I really think. You say what I would.
Yeah, I'll say it. Yeah, that was shucking and jiving to its best.
Oh boy. Yep. Okay. Yep. I'm not allowed to use such terms. But
I said that. That was me.
Yes, indeed.
That was me.
I will simply say that. I'll simply say, and kudos to you, sir. Well, I mean, honestly, like sellouts are the worst. Like, if you're gonna throw that out, I'll throw that name out. Like Tucker Carlson, what a piece of shit. And like ultimately, like you are a Ivy League trained. DeSantis is another piece of garbage too. Like, listen. You are Ivy League trained dudes who are acting Southern and ignorant because you feel like it connects to those people simply to just stir all this crap that we're talking about because you are trash bag humans yourself who can't fucking do things in the right way. So let's just call a spade a spade. And if you want to call me a lefty, liberal, whatever the fuck, fine. I will talk to either of those people and you'll see that I'm not a liberal, I assure you, or that I'm not so liberal as you might think. And on top of that, I care about people.
Yeah,
sincerely.
Empathy.
It doesn't stop me from the pursuit of like making money, or it doesn't stop me from building or prioritizing maybe my team or my family in some ways over others, because you're going to do that. But if I go in there with a mindset of we're together, I'm trying to lead with like love and trust and good things like that, then yes, people tend to exit themselves out very quickly, or you realize the situation's not right very quickly when you do that, right? Because you're being transparent or as ethical as you can be, right? You're being as forthright as you can be. This is why those kind of folks drive me up a wall. Imagine being on the team for Tim Scott or Tucker, and when you have to have these like meetings and you're like talking about like what you're going to do that day, that week, or you're strategically planning, it makes me want to throw up, because I've been in rooms where people are being talked about strategically in ways they should not be spoken about, and how people are developing strategies that are unethical and trash, and quite frankly cost more, which is the most idiotic thing about it all, right? So again, that's how I feel. That's why you can, like, conservatives will still work with me, even though they'll hear me rattling on like this. Why? Because if we're working together, I'm trying to like make sure that you're growing your business appropriately, that we're doing things the right way. We want to make sure that we're doing it streamlined, that you're saving money, that you're doing overhead, right? So that's how you appeal to those folks, is their pocketbooks. You appeal to like, that's how you can maybe have a chance in hell to bring some of those folks over and integrate them into with other people. Now, that's even tougher now today, because all the good people who are trying to do it in a really respectful way are going to have big ass red flags when they find out that this person leans this way, or is flat out supporting, right? And now, to be fair, because of how harshly the lines are divided, it's understandable. Like people aren't gonna do business with people that think they're less than them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would never do business with somebody who, like, you might think you're better than me or you got more skill or talent. That's great. That's normal. But if you literally think you're I deserve to die and you're a human that's more superior to me, no, like we're not. Yeah, you can
kick rocks.
Yeah, kick rocks. Exactly right. So again, it's more, that than other things. Shit, we're running late. So CTAs, be yourself, stand up for yourself, have a great relationship with yourself, and ultimately, really just try to have grace, but also stand up for yourself. Like find that balance, find your balance for you, and don't be afraid to explore it, because it's yours and yours to make for yourself. And it's really just you setting boundaries and tapping into how you feel best to navigate these waters, these inevitable things you run into in conversations or life or society or your community or whatever. Just really talk to yourself and be an encourager, love yourself,
And the only thing I would add to that is that with that, love yourself and just embrace yourself. And here's the thing, don't look at yourself through the eyes of other people that you want to be like other people, and you want to you need to learn to love exactly who you are, even the weird parts, the funny parts, just like that's the stuff that makes you uniquely you.
That's right. And I encourage all of you who put people on pedestals to meet your heroes, because you will be inevitably disappointed, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
it is. So anyhow,
believe in yourself, people.
Love you, brother. Love you all out there. Thank you so much for watching us once again. We're just some guys talking. That's Aaron. I'm Brian. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.